Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Local Gov Stories, the ILCMA podcast, with my co host, Danny Langloss. Hello, Danny. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's been a big, long summer, right? We haven't seen each other since conference.
Since conference, what an amazing time that was.
It was. So what are you up to? Do you have you been on any vacations? Are you heading out? What are you doing?
It's been a very busy summer, and I'm just getting ready to head on vacation. We're going to St. Joseph, Michigan.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Me and Valerie and the littles. The olders can't go this time. Mom and my stepdad, and then my brother and his family. So I just bought a
Nice.
tri-tune. I was just up in Antioch, which I know you were there. You're doing a bunch of work up in that region. But
Yeah.
I just got a boat. I've wanted one for a little while. So we're going to take it out and have some fun and
Oh,
just get away. Need a break. Need that refresh.
that's really exciting. I love that. And I love how you call them the littles and the olders. That's cute.
Here, olders are 26 and 22. The littles are just 5 and almost 2. So yeah, it's a
Love
little gap. Good way to
that.
just
How do they get along? How do
amazing.
they hang out a lot?
Yeah, the olders just love the littles and vice versa. It's just
Yeah.
so cool to see. Lots of good energy and juju, and it's tough having littles again, especially around bedtime, but for the most part,
Yeah.
they're great. And we just got this boat and we went out for a little cruise in the Rock River and they absolutely loved it. And Theo said he's going to be the co-captain on vacation.
Oh, cute. Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
You've been keeping super busy. You haven't been able to do the normal trips, but you were just in Galena on business, got to spend a couple extra days, and you got a big keynote coming up in Louisville, and you're gonna be spending a little extra time there soon.
Well, you said it wrong. It's Louisville. So I was educated by a server one year when I was at this conference, and I said Louisville, and he said, "No, you have to say it like you have marbles in your mouth." And I was like, "Okay, Louisville." And he's like, "Yep." That's how you say it. The locals will get you on that one. But yes, Louisville, and I'm excited. I really like that town. They have a fun entertainment district, and I am doing a keynote there, which I'm excited about. And I'm going with a couple of friends, and we are going to stay a couple days to enjoy Louisville after that. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, it's been a pretty tight summer with business and work. And so I haven't gotten away as much as I would have liked, but that's all right.
Well, I love your topic, and I think it's more important now than ever because your topic in the keynote centers around hope,
Yeah.
and especially now with all the polarization and everything that's happening, I've in this amazing conversation featuring a lifelong of service with, our great executive director, Don Peters.
Yes.
Some of the things I talked to her about are like, what does she see as the greatest challenges? What is she most hopeful for? What's changed in the profession? Learning about how she got involved in the profession, the sacrifices that she had to make, being a mother and
Yeah.
delay, and then her commitment and work to really lift up women in the profession.
Mhm.
But she lifts all boats, and I know I've had this the service she's provided to me and the help to me and to Dixon through our journey, but so
Yeah.
excited about it. I know you got a chance to check it out, and she is just a rock star, and she was on point, and wow.
Yes, and she is, with the things with the medical things that she's been dealing with, is she is so full of hope, and it's so important, and it comes out of her. I feel inspired when I hear Dawn, because she has kept such a positive attitude, and, that's not always the case. So she's just one strong lady, and she has a great story, and maybe we shouldn't say any more about it, and we'll go to your interview with the famous, infamous Dawn Peters about her life and legacy in service to local government.
Well, first of all, I just wanna ask, I mean, you look absolutely amazing. How are you doing?
How am I doing? Health-wise,
Yeah.
I am doing amazingly well. I have had PET scans that came back clear. I have had CAT scans that have come back clear. I continue my immunotherapy treatment every 4 weeks. I get an injection of Opdivo. Um, And while a bit uncomfortable right afterwards, I have tolerated those much better than I did the dual treatment that I was doing via IV. for 4 series of treatment. So I'm glad to be off that, glad to be on to the next phase, and I will be doing this for the next 2 year, almost 2 years. I will be getting treatments until January of 2028. I've had radiation to the bed of the tumor. I go back for an MRI right after the conference, and then another neurologist appointment to make sure everything is clear there. I feel great. I've continued working and feel just blessed to be have such a great medical team, support system, colleagues in the profession who have reached out. It's been amazing. It's been humbling, amazing, and I just feel blessed and lucky, to be honest.
Wow. So do I hear you right to say right now you're cancer free?
I am cancer free for the most part. I've still got some things going on with melanoma on my skin. So we'll have a spot removed actually soon from my nose that not looking forward to, but hoping it's small enough that it won't be too impactful. But that is yet to be determined. So again, my public service message to everybody is go to the dermatologist, get checked. I got checked every 6 months for years and it's still something happened. So just have to be diligent and know your skin and know your marks and know what's new. And it's a constant, a constant.
Well, and to have something like this happen, like you're preparing for retirement and passing the torch and all these things, and then boom.
Boom, boom. Yeah, it's the twists and turns in life that you never envision. Now, my mother had melanoma, recurring melanomas. So I did get genetic testing, and but you just never envision something as serious as a brain tumor that's melanoma based. I mean, the skin thing, okay, you can deal with that. But then when it metastasizes and you go, wait, what?
Yeah.
And it was something. It was something. But
Wow.
I feel, like I said, I feel very fortunate where it was, up near the front. And as the neurologist said, if you had to have a brain tumor, you had it in a really good place. It was easy to remove. They said they got it all. But to be sure, I did the radiation. And then, we will see. We will see. I will be going to the doctor for a very long time. So, but that gives you comfort. I'll be doing CAT scans every 3 months, which means if there's anything that starts to form, they'll get it really early. So, I can survive like this. I can thrive like this. I'm golfing, I'm walking, I'm biking, I'm doing, visiting the grandkids, just living life. So
Well, and I'm sure you've had an overwhelming support and reach
I have,
out from the ILCMA community, but
I
the
have.
a lot of prayers and love have been coming your way, and hearing you say this and seeing you is just incredible. Is it okay if we use what we
Yeah,
just talked about as part of this? Because
absolutely.
and if that's the case, we'll just continue on into it. But on behalf of the entire membership, nobody's surprised at the fact that you're a badass and that you've hit this head on, and that and I know I don't know personally. A good friend of mine, Tad Everett, is the superintendent of Sterling Public Schools within a year of retirement in a very
Oh,
similar
really? Oh,
situation as yours. And
yeah.
he's doing well, but it changes the perspective of everything.
It was really strange to miss the winter conference. After my first treatment of the dual drug, it impacted my liver. I had fever. I had a full body rash. I ended up in the hospital for 5 days. And, I had to literally step back, and that's not something I do easily.
Mhm.
And especially when it's conference time, because, and my staff, Alex and Rachel, stepped up and were amazing at getting through that conference. And, I was directing from a hospital bed, oh, did you do this? Did you do that? Because your brain never stops. Even though you had brain surgery and you're going through it, your brain never, or my brain never stops. So I was just, directing from a hospital bed, which was really strange. But in a weird way, I said to a friend, not that I needed a brain tumor, but I needed something to like pull me back because I'm so invested in this profession, in what I do. It becomes your identity, as you know.
Yeah.
And, what do you do when that goes away? And it forced me into that I had to go away, not because I wanted to, because I had to, and was forced to. And that was strange, and yet something I probably needed to experience and know that there's more to this than your career and what you've done for the last 25, 30 years. It's weird. It's
That
different.
that is a real powerful message for all of us to reflect on because it really does because I heard just such a deep purpose when you talked and a commitment and you were
Hmm.
called to the profession. We're going to get to your story here in a second.
Yeah.
But we also, it's like, wow, when it becomes our entire identity.
It was an identity that I was able to formulate on my own. You weren't Brad or Zach or Marcus's mom. You weren't Joe's wife. You weren't, Paul's daughter. You weren't, you create your own. And that was really powerful for me, especially, how I was brought up, and just, you never dream that for yourself. And to think that I was, recognized by ICMA, recognized with ILCMA, it's just so humbling and surreal, to think that that's me. It's weird.
And that is you. It is it's crazy to me how the journey really is the goal and we never know where the journey is going to take us.
Um,
And
yeah,
I think I look back and we talked thinking back to 17-year-old Dawn Peters
yeah,
entering college
yeah.
a year and a half to take the story over
Okay, so
17-year-old Dawn Peters.
yep. So I knew I wanted to go to college. That was something I really wanted to do. But I was dating my husband at the time, who's 4 years older than me. So he had gone to Illinois State University while we were dating, first dating. I was a senior when we started, in between junior senior year, and he was at ISU. And it was back in the late 70s, early 80s, when we were going through a real economic crisis and interest rates were 20%. I mean, they were crazy. And he had a dealership. His father had a GMC truck dealership. And his father called him and said, "We're drowning. We need you to come home. I need you to help us, get inventory, get rid of inventory, all that stuff." So he quit college and came home. So we were dating, and, I knew I wanted to go to school. So I went to NIU to be close to home, but still away. I lived there for a year and a half. It came time to select a major, and I'm just looking at it going, I don't know what I want to do. And he's, 4 years older. He's like, "Let's get married." And like, said no at first, and then time went on, and I'm like, okay, I have to select a major, and I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to get married and have kids, and that's what I did. So I got married quite early in my life. I was like 20 years old, and had my first child when I was almost 22.
Wow.
Um, and then two kids after that. And while I was home, one of my good friends and I decided to volunteer for the hospital auxiliary. And my mother had been president of the hospital auxiliary in Rochelle, and actually worked her way up to the state president of the Illinois Hospital Association Auxiliary. So she was kind of my role model in that volunteer world. And we started with happy hospital tours to third graders. So my girlfriend and I would go to the hospital and take these little third graders around the hospital and show them around. And from there, I continued with the auxiliary up to president. Probably by the mid 20s, I was president of the hospital auxiliary, which is, all the gray hair lady group, and here I
Mhm.
was. Um, but from there, I went on, and I then became involved in the preschool and was president of the preschool for a couple of years while my kids went through. And then from there, I went to the PTO and just kind of followed my kids through that volunteer world of being involved in their school, being engaged, knowing the teachers, knowing the principal, knowing what's going on. So I served as PTO president, and then when they got into high school, I went into the athletic booster club presidency, and they recycled me twice there. Um, and I in the interim, I knew I wanted to go back to school. So my parents, bless their hearts, said, "Well, we would have paid for you to go to school out of high school. We would have finished that. We will support you in doing that." So I transferred all my credits to Kish, got my associates, transferred back to NIU. I had initially thought I wanted to go into teaching because of the kids and thought, that's what I should do. I'd have summers off. And I quickly realized that that was probably not the path for me. So I decided to just go with where my interests lied. So I went with political science, public administration with a business administration minor when I got back to NIU. And I got into a local government class with a grad assistant who was getting his PhD, and he and I just hit it off. We were probably about the same age, and he would say, "Well, tell us." We would do stories during the class, and he'd be like, bring your stories in from your council, and crazy things that happen and whatever happened. So we had commission form in Rochelle at that time, and we had a gun-toting mayor who was, just kind of crazy, and so I would tell stories, and he and I just hit it off, and he's like, you really should consider this path of professional local government management. And NIU has one of the top programs, and so he told me about it, and I went over to the MPA program and talked with the coordinator at the time, and I got hooked. I was very interested. So I graduated in December of '96, and I initially went and interviewed for a job at a bank in Rochelle, and it was for a trust in a trust department. And I will never forget sitting in the president's office, and he knew my family, he knew my husband's family. My husband banked, his business banked there. And he turned to me and he goes, "Well, I know you have 3 little kids. What are you going to do about daycare?" And I just looked at him and I thought, okay, this is not for me. I can't do this. And I walked out of that interview and enrolled in the MPA program because I thought that was not the right answer or question for him to ask me. And I thought, no, I'm not going to put up with that. So I went into the MPA program, did my internship with the city of DeKalb because it was close, thankfully. And when I graduated, the MPA coordinator position came open, which is like the graduate advisor for the program. It's now called the assistant to the chair. And they asked me to apply for it. And so I went through the process. They had to go through the normal hiring process, and they interviewed, and I got that position. And so, from there, I went to work in August of '97. I started at the MPA program, and what a fun job that was, working with young people, marketing the program, going to various colleges and universities in the region, doing grad fairs, serving as their internship coordinator, serving as their graduate advisor, getting them through classes. It was just a lot of fun. And those are where a lot of my relationships with the current city managers come from, because they remember me as MPA coordinator, like Bill Corrali. I recruited him from Augustana, or,
Wow.
Kimberly Richardson, she came through when I was coordinator. So it's really fun at this point to be looking at the people that I helped get in and through the program thrive today. That's really cool. But that really set me up for the position I'm in today, because I had always said, if I can't be a manager, and the reason I didn't go that path, when I was in DeKalb, I had interviewed for a position in community and economic development, but DeKalb at that time had residency requirements for every position. I mean, it was crazy. And the manager literally said, I cannot, unless you are willing to move to DeKalb, I can't hire you. So they hired someone else, which, when I look back, was a blessing in disguise, because that would have been okay, but I wouldn't have been where I am today. And I never thought it probably would be a good idea to be the manager in my hometown with my husband being in business with,
Mm.
all of that. And I always thought if they were to fire me, I don't know what I would do because I knew I wasn't moving out of Rochelle. It would be just kind of a devastating thing. So I went a different path, but I always had a passion for the profession and always wondered if I would have been a good city manager, but um, I want to hope I would have been. And but there's a lot of parallels to where I am now to being a city manager because the members are my citizens. I have a board, I work to coordinate a lot of things. We do the finance and budgeting. We do, I supervise people here at NIU. Not a lot, not like having a staff of, 100 in a municipality or more, but, I still get to do a lot of the work for the profession, and it's just been amazing. So the fun story is how I got to where I am today. I was MPA coordinator, and the person sitting in my seat, Carol Czar, who is a bit of an intimidating person. I didn't really know her very well. She invited me to lunch, and she asked if I wanted to come to the center to run it down like the Main Street DeKalb program through a contract that they were going to get with DeKalb. And her husband, who was dean of the grad school at the time, was retiring. He'd announced his retirement. So I looked at her, and I don't know where I got the guts, but I looked at her and I said, "Thank you very much. But I really want is your job." And I said, "Not while you're in it, but I know Jerry's announced his retirement. I'm assuming you're going to retire in the next couple of years. And if so, I would like to be considered." And she was shocked. Her eyes like bugged out of her head, literally. And we ended the lunch. And a year later, she called me and she said, "I'm going to be retiring. I want you to come work for me, be my assistant. I'll mentor you underneath me, and you will take over as executive director."
Wow.
And I did that for 3 years. It was amazing. We were joined at the hip. We became very close. She had two boys who were, just enough older than my kids. And so I had three, she had two. She was a non-traditional student who had gone back to school. She had served as MPA coordinator, just like me.
Wow.
Our paths were so parallel. And I credit her. You had something later about mentorship. I mean, I credit her with a lot of where I am today, and the board at that time for having the faith in me and her opinion of, whether I could do that job. Truly, I owe all of that to her. And I got to have lunch with her a couple weeks ago, and I got to thank her just for where I am today. And I gave her
Wow.
a lot of credit for that because she was amazing.
I bet that was a really powerful conversation.
It was because I had told her about my brain tumor and all of that, and it was and her husband had just passed, and so we got together just to, you know, be friends, and it was powerful. It was it was a great lunch. It was a great lunch.
Don, as you share your story, I hear leadership interwoven through all of it, your willingness to step up in different roles in your community, in the school district,
Yeah.
then boom, right in, and the experience at NIU. And I think about the impact that you've had. And as
Hmm.
I entered, this side of the profession 8 years ago, and just
Yeah.
all the positive energy, all the positive comments, the people talking about how you've helped them. And I think about, while I'm sure any community you would have served as city manager and made that community better,
Yeah.
it feels to me like your legacy is all the leaders you've helped create, develop, and mentor to make communities all across Illinois and Wisconsin and beyond better. That is what I hear
Thank
from
you.
your
I
story.
love that. Thank you. Thank you.
That
Yeah.
is, and you talk about, Phil and Kim and so many
So
others
many. So many. Yeah.
and the ripple effect of leadership. But I also heard in your story something that so many women face in the challenges in the workforce, the story at the
Mhm.
bank about what are you going to do for daycare? Men
Yeah.
don't get asked that question.
No.
As you talked about, my husband had a business in Rochelle. We weren't going to leave. Um, And so making decisions that a lot of times men don't have to make. And as I understand it, you've just been a huge advocate and champion for moving women forward in our profession. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, as you know, we started Women's Legacy Project, and I remember working with that core group of women and just the excitement around that. Um, and I remember them wanting to do their first conference, and I said, "Well, I can do that. That's nothing." And they're like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." And so we put together that first conference, and the energy in that room was so different from anything that I had ever experienced. It's one of my favorite days is the Women's Legacy Conference because you're supporting women who aspire to go beyond where they are today and to give the confidence to move up in an organization. It takes a lot. As we know, we struggle with the daycare, we struggle with um, as everybody does, the work-life balance, which I don't believe in work-life balance because it's almost impossible. It really is. Um, but you have seasons, and you know where you can take the time, and when you can take the time, you need to take the time. And you know when your busy time is, and you know when you have to put in those extra hours and be there and get the job done. So the Legacy Conference grew from just around 100 people to a record-setting 240 women a couple
Wow.
weeks ago at that conference. And the
Wow.
sessions they put on about resiliency and how to deal with all the issues that we, deal with in the profession. It's just an amazing conference. And to know that I had a part in supporting women in that profession to get hopefully aspire to that top role. Not everyone wants to be the manager, and that's okay. And we need strong assistants. And I know a lot of people do not want to put themselves out there to be in that role of manager because it can be, as you know, a very difficult role to fulfill. So
Yeah.
there's some cushion at that second level that you have to respect, and it's okay to be an assistant and be a strong one and support the manager. But it's also okay to put yourself out there and be the manager, and you will survive it. And there's support systems out there for that. And um, I encourage women to do that because you can do it. You can do it.
Don, when you started the Legacy Project, when you came in to this role, I, the gap and disparity between women and men, just so significant.
Yeah.
How much have we closed the gap and how much more do we have to go?
We have definitely closed the gap. When I look at all of the women managers that exist today in the state of Illinois, I don't have the statistics. I wish I would have looked that up. Um, but I can tell you, we have definitely closed the gap. It's when I look in the Chicago metro area and all the women serving in that region, it's impressive. It's really impressive. And they're doing amazing work. Um, so I don't have stats for you though. I'm sorry.
No, I just the general
Yeah.
feeling because to me, I know probably the person I just called her yesterday with an issue we're facing, Gita Newkirk
Oh
from
yeah, Gita. Yeah.
Highland Park. Just,
Oh yeah.
I met her
She's a
right
rock star.
away. She became a mentor, a great
Yeah.
friend, and I was just leaning on her for some advice yesterday. But you're right. It's amazing to see the gap shrink. I'm sure
It
there's still
definitely is.
gap to shrink,
Yeah.
but I think the Legacy Project, your work, your leadership, and shining a bright light on that tells those female leaders in our profession, this is for you too.
Absolutely.
And I love
Absolutely.
your message as well that it's okay not to, we need great assistant city
We
managers.
do.
I know our
Yeah.
assistant city manager has been who's getting ready to retire, has been just a huge piece of our success and overcoming the challenges that
Mhm.
we've had. Don, when you look back at your profession, at your career,
Mhm. Mhm.
what are you most proud of?
Mm. I think I'm most proud of the level of engagement now in ILCMA.
Mm.
I mean, we have set records for conference attendance for the last year, which was a goal of mine, not just through sponsors attending, but through our members attending, the target audience, the managers, the assistants, the students, the analysts, all of it. Because that's what we do it for. We do it for you. And to see that number grow has really been a source of pride because our conferences are great. And I
They
know,
are.
yeah, and we work hard at those. And it's very member driven. You've served, I think, on committees before. It's all member driven because it's our member engagement through our committees. And I'm also proud of that it is all member driven. I just implement the policy like you do when your board makes decisions.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are driving it. It's not me. I'm facilitating it and making it happen, but they're coming up with the ideas. They're coming up with the speakers. They're coming up with the topics. And that to me has led to the success, I think, of the conferences because they know what you need better than I do. I'm not sitting in your seat. It's not for me to push it on you. I want you to push back and tell me what you need. And I think that's been the secret to the success of the conferences and professional development and just getting more member engagement and being member driven.
So how long have you been serving in this role with ILCMA?
I took over for Carol in 2004 at the Galesburg Summer Conference.
Wow.
She retired. I started as assistant in 2001, worked with her for 3 years, which was amazing. And then since 2004.
So in that time, nearly a quarter of a century, what has changed the most in local government leadership?
I think what has changed the most is the evolution with social media and the pressures that it has put on members in the profession. Because, you can hide behind that. People can hide behind that. And the level of incivility, the political divide today, while it's always been there, I feel like it's magnified because of social media and what people can just are allowed to say anymore. And I think it's taking a toll on the mental health in the profession. And we have a lot of sessions about resiliency and, just trying to get through your days. Um, and I think that has really impacted members, the profession, people wanting to go into the profession. They're seeing the divide at the federal level. They see it trickle down into the local level, and they look at, I think, future and students who could be going considering a career in public administration look at it and go, maybe not. And
Yeah.
that's a concern. That's a big, big concern. We went through just relating it back to the NIU MPA program, um, we went through a couple of years of a governor who didn't fund higher education with a budget. That was devastating to all of the state universities. People started to look at where they were going to go to college, where their kids were going to go to college, and they didn't have a lot of confidence in Illinois schools that they were going to be funded and that they would survive. So they sent their kids out of state. And enrollments started to decline at all of the regional universities, the northerns, the easterns, the westerns, the southerns. The MPA program took a hit as well, and we were just starting to rebound, and then COVID hit. And that changed the dynamic as well. And programs are just now starting to gear back up and get increased enrollments here at NIU, which is great to see. But we have a lot of work to do in promoting the profession to younger people, getting them interested in it. And, when I used to go out and market the MPA program, I would compare it to, being at the head of a business, a private business. And while you may not make the millions of dollars, you still have pensions, which at the age of 18, 19 may not mean much to them, But I bet if they go home and talk to their parents and say, you know what, I'll be set for life, they'd go, yeah. That it's an honorable career, that you are making a difference in the lives of others, that you have amazing retirement, health insurance, uh, all kinds of benefits that come with the being in the profession. And just talking to them about, yes, you can go be a lawyer, yes, you can go be whatever, but consider this: you're making a difference in the lives of people every single day,
every day. And
every day.
we say with our team and to whoever we work with, there's no place you can make a greater
Oh,
impact than in your local community.
exactly.
You're shaping and creating
You are.
the future.
You are.
That's pretty impressive. So we talked about probably one of the biggest challenges that you've seen
Yeah.
and the biggest change over the years. What are you most optimistic about for leaders in local government, for local communities?
I'm most optimistic in that the profession has been able to change, adapt, and thrive.
Mm,
Even given all of the challenges along the way, it's what makes our members so amazing. I mean, you look at something like AI, and there for a while, I was like, are you using it? What are you doing with it? How are you, and you wrap your brain around it. And what's so amazing, and what I love about ILCMA is the networks. Like you just said, I called Gita. Well, you guys are over 100 miles apart. It's not like you're a neighbor,
yeah.
but you still have a relationship. And I think that those relationships are key to success in this profession and survival in this profession. You've got to have your network. Paula Schumacher, when she
Oh,
took over as president, I said, what's your goal for the year? I always meet, just like you guys meet with your incoming mayors or whatever, I meet with
yeah.
my incoming presidents and say, what is your desire for your year as president? And her desire was to start a support network for managers.
Mm,
And we have now entered into an agreement with Compass Peer Groups, which is Craig Rapp, and they will be facilitated sessions once a month. You will get a cohort together who will continue to meet all year. And it's part professional development, but part peer support, just talking about through issues, and their facilitated conversations through people in ILCMA who have been trained as facilitators through Craig. So
wow.
that is huge. And I hope it takes off, because it's a member support system that I think is really needed in the profession. So I'm
This
optimistic about what ILCMA can do for the members above and beyond what we're already doing.
the Just phenomenal. And this profession wasn't meant to do alone.
No,
And
no.
having that good peer support and people
Yeah,
you can lean on and talk to and people from outside your community, even outside the profession,
yeah.
is
They
so,
don't
so
get it.
important.
They don't get it.
You
People outside the profession do not understand the pressures
oh
that you
no,
are under in any way, shape, or form.
none. None, even when you do great things, even when you bring
Yep.
good projects, the level of criticism, it can take a toll. Don, I'm going to transition. In 2024, you became the first recipient,
Yeah.
right, of ILCMA's Advocacy for the Profession Award in honor of Martha, I don't want to destroy her last name,
Parego.
Parego,
ICMA. Yep. Martha Parego.
ICMA.
Yeah.
So you've been a strong voice in ethics for the profession.
Hmm.
Why is the ICMA Code of Ethics so important, especially in today's environment?
You know, it is the foundation of this profession. If you don't do your job with integrity and transparency, and not just your job, your personal life too, because if you got to walk the talk. And it's that old saying, would you want to read about this in the paper tomorrow morning? I don't think so. Don't do it. And I always tell people, if you have a question of, you're being pressured to do something from an elected or whatever, call me. I can be that liaison between you and ICMA. Not everybody is comfortable disclosing some of the pressures they might be feeling when it comes to an ethical decision on what's right or wrong. And I've always been happy to be that go-between, saying, hey, ICMA, this is a situation. What should this member do? Is it a violation?
Mm.
I want to be that advocate for you. Because I know it can be shame. You can feel shame just saying it out loud, like, why am I even considering this? But you're being pressured in some way. So it's just the foundation of everything we do. Because once you lose that trust, it is really hard to get it back. And then if you lose a position and someone Googles you and they see that, whatever it is, it's going to impact you the rest of your career. And we just want to save you from that. You don't need to go through that. And it's just important to live with truth and transparency.
I think the great thing too with the code of ethics, most managers have it in their contracts.
Yep.
And so it helps you in those situations and in politics to say,
I
look,
can't.
this is,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't. This is the contract. This is
I
the code
even
of
use it.
ethics. Yeah,
I'm like, I can't
exactly.
support you. Yeah.
But-
I've used it.
So mentorship and people, you've
Yeah.
talked about a few
Hero.
people who've had tremendous impact in your life, but what advice would you give to young professionals who are just beginning their career in local government?
My advice to them, and it kind of goes back to what I said earlier about networks, is find your people.
Mm,
As you go through this career, and we all had, if you came from like an MPA program or something, you had your cohort that you went through, and many of those are in the profession. But relationships matter. Form those relationships and keep them. Facilitate the conversations that you need to have with those people. Be honest, be open, and it will get you through a lot of trying times and good times. Celebrate the celebrations too. I'm not saying it all has to be bad, but I think my advice is, and especially for this next generation who has been brought up so much on social media, they don't always have those personal connections, I think, that we grew up having. um, the video games where you're just kind of playing through a machine. I remember saying that to a professor when I was in college the second time with my kids and watching them play video games and being in the same room with one of their friends and they're playing through this machine and I would watch them and I'd be like, you're not really I mean, you're interacting, but you're not really interacting. I mean,
yeah.
you're not talking to each other in a personal way. You're talking through a game. And it was just, I said, that will shape this future generation. And it has. I mean, even more so today than it did back then in the 90s. And it's profound to me. You gotta get those relationships and nurture them.
So for seasoned managers who
Yeah.
might be tired, frustrated, wondering how much longer they can do this,
Ugh, yeah.
what guidance or advice would you give to them?
Oh, I think knowing where I've been just since January of this year, um, there's life. I'm hoping there's life beyond the career and the profession. What that is, I'm not quite sure yet, but I know a lot of managers when they're, in the position and they're getting close to the retirement, and so many, don't really retire. They go into a second encore career, not quite as in the boiling pot as where they currently are. And that's kind of cool that so many do that. And I think it's a good way to transition out, not feel like you have nothing, no purpose, but knowing that you're still going to be helping in the profession somehow. Um, yeah, and they need to rely on their networks too. A lot of, I know a lot of people are retiring coming up, and there's a close cohort of guys and women that are retired and retiring soon. And it's just, interesting to watch because they're people I've gone through this whole career of mine with, and it's I'm proud for them. I'm happy for them that they're going out the way they need to go out and want to go out.
That is a good thing when you can do that.
It is a very good thing when you go out on your own terms.
Don,
Absolutely.
you've had such a decorated career. You built so many
Yeah.
relationships all across the country. What do you hope your legacy will be?
That I made a difference, that I helped you as a manager, as an assistant, as a whatever level you are, that I helped you navigate your career to be the success you are today. And that I had some role to play in that through my role in ILCMA.
Don, one of the things I admire about you the most is that you walk the talk
Thanks.
and you pass on what's been given to you. And as I heard the story, which I'd never heard before, where you had the courage to step forward and say, I want your job.
Yep.
And then a year later, she called, and then the
Yep.
mentoring that happened and preparing you day one. And then I think, fast forward all those years later, and that is exactly what you're doing for Rachel and for
Hope
this
so.
team.
Yeah. It's my goal. I fought really hard to get Rachel here so that I could have at least a year with her. And it actually turned out even better than I could imagine because she started as a grad assistant with us at the Center for Governmental Studies. So she was working with another team. And when we found out she had an interest in associations, because she has an association background, she quickly transitioned to my team. And so I was able to work with her for at least a year and a half before we hired her full time. So while NIU was going through some budget issues, they weren't hiring. Thank goodness for ILCMA and WCMA, they came up with some supplemental funding so we could have a dual salary for this year and could hire her. And because it was important to both boards that there was some succession and overlap. And so I feel like I went to bat for that.
Hmm.
The boards supported me, and eventually NIU supported the idea of the supplemental income to hire her. It was a struggle. It was a lot, and I am very happy and proud that we were able to win. I gotta
Well,
win.
and there's the behind the scenes stuff
No, you have no idea.
that nobody sees that it takes, and just like in local
No
government.
idea. It
But the
was
stuff
brutal.
but the stuff people see is how you've poured in to Rachel, how you've poured into the team, how
Yeah,
you've prepared them, and the job they did at the winter conference
I know.
was
So proud
just
of them. So
next
proud of
level.
them.
And I
Yeah.
bring this up only because I really feel like the measure of our leadership isn't what we accomplish while we're in the role, because it's what sustains after.
Yeah.
It's what we build that, that remains after us.
Yep.
And you have done that in spades.
I hope so. And I remember Carol saying to me, she just knew that she had taken it as far as she could. She was very proud of what she had done for ILCMA. She did an amazing job. She was here for 20 years. She was fantastic. But you come to a point, and I get it. It's like the social media. I'm not a big social media person, so for me to be on Facebook or LinkedIn and doing all this stuff, it's just not me. I'm a stalker. I'm not a I'm not a poster. And this next generation is. And so I know it's time for me to hand that off, and she will take it to another level in a different way. And I hope so. I hope she has the base that I've provided and yet takes it from there. And I think she'll be ready to do that.
Yeah, she definitely appears. So,
Uh-oh.
final thing. So, you've spent years pouring and pouring and pouring in to local government leaders, to communities, to what has the profession given back to you?
Oh my gosh. I think I mentioned it earlier. It gave me purpose. It gave me my own identity that I didn't have in my 20s and 30s. I cannot put words. I never in my life thought I would be where I am today, getting the honors that I am getting the recognition. The NIUMPA just named a scholarship after me, the Dawn S. Peters Legacy Scholarship, and we're giving the first one away at the summer conference. That was the most amazing tribute I could have ever, because I love that program. It put me where I am today. Had I not been steered that direction, I would have never be where I am today. And I credit all of that back to Dr. Jim Banovitz, who was another amazing mentor who showed faith in me when I didn't have the confidence in myself. That program helped build me. And it it's given me so much. I can't even put into words, but I'm just really
Oh,
proud and excited of where I am in my career right now. And I guess going out on top, I'm just, it's going to be weird to not be coming in every day and doing what I do. So it's going to be really
it
hard.
will be.
It's
But
going to be
once you
really
get
hard.
used to what I hear from people who've made that transition,
Yeah.
once you get used to it, you'll be like, why didn't I do this earlier? That's what I
I don't
hear. I don't
know.
know. I can't even imagine that.
Well, I've got 7, soon to be 8 grandkids. We got another one coming in November. And yeah, they're in Texas and Minnesota. The closest ones are in Huntley, about an hour away. So, looking forward to that. I have a feeling the new baby, the parents, my son and his daughter, my daughter-in-law might be looking for a little babysitting. So, we'll see. But I'm also going to continue in the profession in some way. I'm going to be a facilitator in the Compass peer groups with Heidi Voorhees.
Nice.
And then I'm also continuing with my Midwest Leadership Institute role as well. So I think that'll be just perfect
It'll
for
be just perfect.
the next phase. I'm phasing out in phases, I guess.
Don, it just, first of all, on behalf of everybody with ILCMA and I'm sure WCMA, we're so happy to hear how this journey in your battle is going and how
Thank
well you're doing. You
you.
look absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
And I really appreciate the vulnerability and courage for you to share because you know
yeah,
people really care
yeah,
and just for taking the time to have this conversation because I've known you for a long time. We've
yeah,
needed to lean on you and your team during
yep,
the whole problem in 2012.
yep,
But I got to know so much more about you today, and I'm sure everybody else did as well in your journey. And it
yeah.
is truly just an incredible, a phenomenal story. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Really wonderful interview, both you and Dawn. She really is just so impressive. And I know it is the year of Dawn, as it should be, right? Up until the end of this year. We're just going to make sure that she knows how much she has done for this profession. But you know what I love? The way that she got into what she's doing right now is having the foresight to have when she had lunch with that lady who is the executive director to put it out there that this is something that she wanted to do ultimately. And then a year later, she was tapped on the shoulder, and here she is today, 25 years later, which is just an amazing story, just of putting yourself out there.
It was an amazing story and great, to kick it off here. And she's doing well because I wasn't sure what that conversation was going to be when I asked initially.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, Melanie, it was just such an honor to be able to sit with her, to interview her, just to ask questions and listen. And you can just see how articulate and bright and love for the profession and love for the relationships that she's built.
Yeah.
Really cares about the people and the community she's serving. And so it was so
Mhm.
much fun to have that opportunity. It's one of the it's one of the best, not me personally, but best interviews I've ever been part of, just to be able
Yeah.
to showcase her and shine that bright light on her.
Which she totally deserves. Amazing. So I hope everyone really enjoyed learning about a lot of things that maybe you didn't know about Dawn. She really has quite a history behind her. So we're going to move on to some upcoming events. You know what? As it is often, it is all IAMA. We've got mini golf, we've got baseball games, two of them. So go to ilcma.org and click on the calendar on the homepage on events, and you can get all the details to get involved with IAMA. Once we get through summer, the lunches will start again. We'll start planning towards conference again, but it's kind of a little bit of free fall in the summer, right? Like, not as many professional events because everyone's doing traveling and just trying to enjoy the weather while we can.
Well, I'm looking forward to ICMA. I just registered today, figured out
Oh.
Jeremy England's the county administrator for Lee County, which is our county seat, and we've worked together since he ran Discover Dixon. And so I was on the fence. He's like, "Hey, I found a place, an Airbnb," and so we're registered. And can't wait to go out. I know a lot of people are, and hoping Dawn will be there as well. And it's going to be a great time. Long Beach. It's like, okay.
Nothing wrong with that. All right. Well, then we hope you will tune in next time because the next phase of this is an interview with Rachel, Dawn's heir apparent, who will be taking over at the end of the year. So we're going to hear about her because I don't know if everyone has gotten a chance to really get to know Rachel yet. So that'll be something to look forward to, in addition to a highlight and another local government professional who's a member of ILCMA. So we will see you next time.